Hello, everybody. Welcome back to One Leeds. We're back here with an opposition preview. We haven't done one of these in ages. Honestly, Dave, I can't remember the last time we did it, but it's Dave from Talking Wolves. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you. Yeah, a little bit nervous for the last quarter, I suppose, of the season. But other than that, yeah, keeping well, mate.
Yeah, got yourself in a decent position. Obviously, Dave, Talking Wolves channel, as I've mentioned, go check that out, obviously. But yeah, it's been a fair while since I've done one of these, mate. But it's always quite nice talking through the game with someone else, not just stressing on my end about Leeds United. But yeah, overall, Dave, it's been an interesting season for Wolves. Obviously, Bruno Lage, I think I was almost envious of you lot because making that change when you did.
Yeah,
I thought was brave, very, very brave. Obviously, I think you had an assistant manager. Was it Steve Davis for a little bit, and it all looked a little bit turmoil at Wolves. I think at that point we were 3 points ahead of you with the game in hand, and obviously we played you at Ellen Road. It was a very even affair, I thought, but Leeds managed to get the win, one of our very few wins this season. But overall, you obviously then brought in Lopetegui after many attempts to get him in. Very, very impressive, obviously, ex-Real Madrid, ex-Spain. I mean, the season's been up and down, hasn't it, Dave? I mean, how are you feeling going into this game and just about Wolves in general?
yeah, it's been like you said, interesting for us. I think Wolves probably made the right decision at the time in sacking Bruno Lage, but cocked up the whole managerial situation. I think, like I said to you off camera just before we started, the Lopetegui thing, that I think they were unfortunate in the timing because he'd left Sevilla, his dad had fallen ill, so his priorities were to look after his dad. We tried for Michael Beale, who was at QPR doing all right at the time. We'd interviewed other managers, but it sort of fell quite nicely in the end to get Lopetegui in before the World Cup, gave him that break to sort out what he needed to. And he started off pretty brightly, to be fair. I'm just hoping come the end of the season, that sort of break between Lage and Lopetegui, where Steve Davis was in charge, doesn't cost us because there were certain games in that spell where we should have done better. But yeah, he's done all right. He's done a lot of things right. He's made some mistakes, but to be fair to Lopetegui, right after the final whistle, he's the first person to admit he makes mistakes. Whereas Lage, and I'm sure probably similar with Jesse Marsch, almost tried to throw the blame on somebody else. So it's a breath of fresh air, really. And I'm hoping that we're safe. But each weekend, my mood and the attitude of Wolves social media changes because after we beat Spurs, we were 6 points clear. We were only looking up. And then when results go against us and we lose to Newcastle, yes, we're 13th, but we're only 3 points above the drop zone. So it's so tight there at the moment. And our next few games against you guys, we've got Forest just after the international break. They're going to be crucial for us between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, it's quite a staggering bottom 6, 7 in it, Dave. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen it like this. I don't think I can't remember. Maybe 10 years. I think there was a famous one in maybe 2010, 2011. I can't remember.
We were in that one when
was that when Wigan went down, or I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we stayed up. We lost, but because we lost 3-2 on goal difference, we stayed up. I think.
Yeah,
I think Birmingham went down.
Was that before
Blackpool.
you went down? Yeah.
Yeah. That was a year before we went down. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that was a mental one as well. But this is it's nuts, isn't it? I mean, all the way up to Palace, and I think Palace have still got the bottom 8 to play, really. So I don't really know if I include them. But when you've not had a shot on target in 4 games, and you're looking at and you're looking at making a managerial change when it comes to Patrick Vieira, I mean, we're just talking about timely managerial appointments and replacements. And to be honest, Dave, I think we made ours slightly too late. But I mean, we still made ours with what 16, I believe, 17 games to go. Making a managerial decision now for a team like Crystal Palace, it's probably not the right move, is it?
No, I didn't know whether they were looking at changing the manager there, but yeah, they've got some favourable games coming up, but their form since the World Cup has been disastrous. They've been really, really poor. I think they've been unlucky. I know Zaha's just come back. He's a massive part to how they play, but yeah, I really don't know. I think for the neutral, it's fascinating, but for fans of like us in the teams, it's nervy going into every match day. Really nervous, don't know what to expect. Like games like this weekend, I really can't predict. I'd love to say yes, Wolves are going to win, but I don't know. It's going to be a really tough game. So yeah, like I said, for a neutral, it's fascinating, but for us, not so much.
What's his home form been like, Lopetegui? Is he sort of, because we see with Dyche coming in at Goodison Park, he's made it a little bit of a fortress. I think he's won 3, lost 1. Some notable names in there when they've beaten Arsenal, and Brentford obviously beating us at Goodison as well, lost to Villa. But overall, he's made Goodison a fortress. Has Lopetegui managed to do that with Molineux?
Yeah, I don't know the form off the top of my head, but most of the games that he's won have all been at home. Beaten Spurs most recently in our last home game. We'd beaten Liverpool really comfortably at home. We beat West Ham towards the start of the year as well. We had, yeah, I mean, we're playing a lot better at home than we are away. Let's put it that way. I think away, it's like a typical, under Lopetegui, it's like typical away performances where he likes to sort of defend quite deep, look to frustrate the opposition, and it sort of backfired against us a couple of times, like he did it against Man City, and again came out after the final whistle, said, I got the team completely wrong. Happened again at Newcastle. He said that he made the wrong mistake towards the end of the game. So he's still learning as a manager, but home form is where, we look a lot better, and that's where we're looking like we're going to get the points at the moment.
Yeah, I think you managed to do that. I think in the Premier League, and you well, if you make your home ground a fortress, then it's always going to be positive for you, isn't it? If you can pick up the odd point away, and I think there's been some humdingers between Leeds and Wolves over the past however many years, Dave. I remember a 4-3 down there.
Yeah,
Molineux when I was at university going nuts in my university library, but I think we pulled it back to 3-3, and then I think it was Edwards. Was it Edwards? Yeah, in the last minute. I was like, typical Leeds. But yeah, and then obviously last season, which was nuts, and I think that was the one where you were in your car, Dave, recording.
Oh,
I think
my
that was
God, yeah, that's the one.
I think I've forgotten about that one, mate. But yeah, I think that was an absolutely crazy game. Obviously, Wolves dominant, absolutely dominant up until half time. Obviously, the Jimenez sending off, and it all. I mean, that game was that we had 4 players go off injured, and I think you took the lead in the 11th minute of stoppage time, and then I don't know, the second half was just a blur. It was, I don't know what happened, but it almost like Wolves retreat. There's been a few good games over the years, hasn't there?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I mean, I've tried to erase that game from my memory. I think Neves came off injured and we fell apart after that, I'm sure. Or he came off injured and we played a lot better than I expected. I can't remember, but
it was early on, wasn't it?
The red card was obviously pivotal because we just fell apart after that. And I think that was, we played you and then we played Arsenal like twice very soon around that. And I think we were probably 7th or 8th in the league at that point. And after that, Bruno Lage just collapsed. I think that game was the start of his downfall because he couldn't get any sort of run together between then and the end of the season. And then he started off dreadfully this year as well. But yeah, I don't know why. Obviously, we beat you in the cup earlier this year. But first game of the season, we didn't beat you. Last year, we didn't. It was a draw in the first game, I think, at Ellen Road as well, 1-1, where you guys had loads of injuries and we should have beaten you.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been pretty close games.
It's always tight, isn't it? I always feel when it's Leeds and Wolves.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like there's always, like, as well in, we're talking about humdingers, but there's always been 1-0s in the past sort of 10 years of us playing each other and stuff like that. Always seems tight at Ellen Road, always seems tight at Molineux, aside from really the season where you went up when Barry Douglas, Helder Costa, Willy Bolly, where you were just demolishing everyone. It's been pretty tight, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, going into this one, Dave, how has he changed things then, Lopetegui? Like, what's he done that's very different to Bruno Lage? Is it an obvious change? Is he just come in and been sort of that man manager? Is he happy to sit tight? I mean, from what I've seen with Wolves, it's very much hug the touch lines, which would sort of illustrate that he's trying to play a little bit more expansively.
Yeah, he's changed a little bit of everything, really. I think with Bruno Lage, he came in with a reputation of a very good coach, had very good ideas, but I don't think he quite knew how to transform them from the training ground onto the pitch. And it got to a point, I felt it towards this time last season, where we'd gone on a dreadful run, probably a few weeks after we lost to you guys. And all of a sudden, I'm like midweek in between matches, and I'm seeing players abroad on holiday and stuff. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? Why we lost 4 games on the bounce? And I'm seeing players go to Paris and stuff in the middle of the week. So I started. I know the season was over for us then, but I thought, for me, you can do that in 5 or 6 weeks when the season's done. And I know you've got to have time off, but I think that midweek when you're supposed to be training is just taking the mick. And I think Bruno Lage started to do that. He was getting a little bit too laid back. And when Lopetegui came in, he says he couldn't believe how unfit the squad were, because I think he was just like almost, like I said, Lage was just too laid back. But I remember just before the World Cup break when we had Arsenal, Steve Davis was still in charge, but Lopetegui had officially been appointed, and he just did like a lap around the pitch before the game, and it was weird. You could just feel his aura coming off him. You're like flipping it, like you just know this guy's the real deal. And Wolves did loads of content with new signings coming in, and he just seems like he's a person that you could talk to and have a conversation with. And I've spoken to ex-players, like John Ruddy and Romain Says, two main ones that we spoke to on our channel, and I said, like, man management wise, you couldn't really have a conversation with Bruno Lage. So I think that's been a big part of it. So we look fitter, we look better, we look a little bit more attractive on the pitch as well. And it's just trying to get us to score more goals, really. That's been an issue. That Nuno had the problem at the end of his tenure. Bruno Lage had a huge issue. Fortunately for Bruno Lage, he kept us quite tight at the back. And Lopetegui, we're starting to see a few more goals come in now. But yeah, he's trying to get a lot more out of the wide men. But I think at the moment, he still doesn't know what his best 11 is, because I don't think we've had 2 consecutive games with the same 11. I think he's been a little bit unfortunate with injuries and fitness. But that's what he needs to try and figure out now. Try and get a consistent 11 between now and the end of the season, and we should be absolutely fine. Are you on mute? Sorry, mate.
Mate, this happens all the time. The viewers will recognise that. But yeah, second lowest scorers in the Premier League. I couldn't believe it, on 20 goals. We've somehow managed to get 31 goals, but I mean, we've been going through a little bit of a drought as of late. Brighton, we scored twice, but it was 2 wonder goals, really. But aside from that, it was 1 goal in 5. So it was quite a strange one with Jesse Marsh, to be quite honest with you, because it was goals going in, but I mean, they're just keeping it short at the back. And I think with a lot of Premier League managers, especially the other 14 teams, it's it's a really difficult balance to get, isn't it? Being able to score going forward, but being able to effectively defend. And I guess that's what separates us from the top 6.
Yeah, that Wolves have just struggled with that. Like I said, Nuno's last year. If you count Nuno's final year, Bruno Lage last season, this season, Wolves are average less than a goal a game. Like, it's been abysmal. So that's something that we haven't ever been the same since Jimenez's injury. That's, and that's not the only factor. Jota left the club. We've had wingers come in and not performed. So we've struggled with that. So that's something that Lopetegui hopefully keep us up. And I think this summer he needs a proper rebuild to actually find forwards and attacking midfielders and wide men that are actually going to contribute goals. Because that is, if Wolves want to get back to, being a top 7, top 8 team, at the end of the day, that's what needs to happen.
Is that the expectation then at Wolves?
Not necessarily, but I think as Wolves fans, we were very, very spoilt for about 3 or 4 years. Like, as soon as Fosun came in, the first year was a bit shaky. Then Nuno came in, won us the league, got us into an FA Cup semi-final and finished 7th, got us to a Europa League quarter-final and finished 7th the following year. And then COVID happened and we finished, 14th? And then everyone's saying, right, Nuno's got to go. So Nuno,
what were your thoughts on that, Dave? Because it's interesting, because we were linked with Nuno, and there was a lot of Leeds fans who were probably against it. And obviously, we know he's, I think he's in Qatar or Saudi now, isn't he?
Saudi.
Managing. And I was looking at it, really. I took a step back and I thought, it's not going to be the most attractive thing. But at the end of the day, Wolves were, like you said, I had 13th or 14th when they let him go. Had the expectation just gone a little bit too far with Wolves fans?
Yeah, well, I've said it. I understood why fans were frustrated, because it was during lockdown as well. And when you're watching every game on TV, you're looking at your team struggling. It's like it was becoming like a bit of a chore to go to watch Wolves, because you just knew we didn't know what to expect. I think, like I said, we were spoiled, but Nuno really thrived upon having the fans there and atmosphere there, and our momentum was phenomenal. Right before lockdown, we'd just beaten Spurs away. We were about to play Olympiacos in the last 16, I think, of the Europa League, and that's when it all got shut off. And then obviously he's come back to this empty ground. We lose Jimenez quite shortly after as well. So I was prepared to give him another season, Nuno. I was more than happy. I don't think he would have sent us down the following year. I think, he would have kept us in the Premier League. But I don't know, I suppose it got a little bit stale at Wolves, but I've had memories come up today, because it's 4 years since we were in the FA Cup. Got to the FA Cup semi-final, and a picture of him came up on my Facebook, and I thought, they were actually good times, to be fair. Like, it gave me some serious, like, lifelong memories for a Wolves fan.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you just talk about your 3-4 year period, and it, football is just such a it's just based on cycles, isn't it? I mean, we had the same thing, and when you guys were doing that, and you guys were just tearing apart the Championship, I and many Leeds fans were looking at Wolves and thought, I wonder if we'll ever have anything like that. I doubt it. And then a season later, we get this, this old Argentinian who comes in and transforms the entire club, and then we had 3 years of just joy and delight. And it's funny, isn't it? You need to enjoy these moments, don't you? And in football, you're always thinking to yourself, what's next? But you actually do miss those moments a lot. Anyway, let's get that violin away, Dave. So this weekend, anyway, obviously, Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Leeds United. Are you expecting many changes? I mean, I presume Lopetegui's at his press conference today. And we'll get into my thoughts on Wolves in a little bit and your thoughts on Leeds. But any major changes from in terms of availability for Wolves?
It's frustrating because Lopetegui always does his press conferences on a Friday lunchtime, so it never gives me not
good for the previews, is it?
Exactly, yeah. No, but I think in terms of a rough 11, I think Sarr will definitely start in goal. Left back, he's gone with Johnny Otto the last couple of games. He's been in and out of the team a lot. He was great versus Spurs, not so good versus Newcastle. I think against Leeds at home, possibly bring Ait-Nouri back in to try and, a bit more of an attacking threat down that left-hand side. I think Kilman and Dawson will keep their place. The defence has looked a lot better since Craig Dawson came in, a little bit more experience. And Semedo at right back. Neves took a little knock against Newcastle. I'm going to presume he's still okay. I was glad because he was one booking away from a 2-game suspension.
Of course he was brilliant.
So he's playing. Lamina's coming, has been good. Nunes was dropped the last game. He's one of those players, mate, that is so frustrating to watch him because you look at him.
How much did you pay? Was it 45 million for him?
Similar to that, yeah. But you look at him and you watch the game Saturday, you think he's a great footballer, but he just does he just makes the basics so hard for himself. And we linked with a move away to Liverpool, and I thought Liverpool won't be buying him, based on performances this year.
Sounds very much like Jack. It sounds very much like Jack Harrison, all the ability in the world, but it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, and then you got players like Martino, obviously still quality, but do you start him? He's come off the bench. Whenever he comes off the bench, he almost kills the game off for you. If you're winning, when we beating Spurs, he came on. I thought he was brilliant. And then the front three, I don't know what our best front three is. Lopetegui can't decide. Mateus Cunha's come in and looked bright. Hasn't scored yet, but picked up an injury, so I don't know if he's fit. Sarabia has looked good, picked up an injury, so I don't know if he'll be available. Jimenez again, hit and miss. Great against Spurs, wasn't that great against Newcastle. Adama, he seems to prefer off the bench. Neto has come back from an injury, so it's mental at the minute. But most of our best 11 or most of our best squad is available. It's just Lopetegui goes with and picks for the game.
I guess Neto coming back's a big boost as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've not, he was great during the lockdown season. Then he was injured most of last year, and started, had loads of rumours about going to Arsenal in the summer, and then stayed with us, and then got injured quite early this season. So I'm hoping that we start to see the best of Neto, but I'm just at the same time, I hope these two injuries aren't going to sort of hold his career back. But he's a big boost, obviously, to have a player like that come back and be available. It's a big boost.
Oh yeah, huge, mate. Yeah, he's technically gifted, isn't he? And he's nice balance about him as well. I think he's a really good player. Interesting how you're talking about Arsenal there. They've almost got a really similar profile in Trossard, haven't they? So you can see what they were looking at. All right, mate. Well, we'll just get into our Betmate offer. Guys, you know that we are partnered with Betmate, and it's not only one Leeds, it is Talking Wolves as well. So we're going to go through Dave's picks. We're going through my picks. I've tried to be fair to Wolves, and Dave is just absolutely shit housed it. So we're going to show you Dave's predictions as well. But first of all, guys, as always, this time it's free, which is fantastic, Dave. 50 quid guaranteed pot this week. And if you want to get involved, Wolves versus Leeds. Dave, you were saying that you get involved in pretty much every single Wolves one, and you're very active, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I get involved in all the Wolves ones. Try and have a little go on some of the other games as well. Like I said earlier, sort of the Carabao Cup final, I got involved in every now and then. Get on the Champions League ones. But yeah, the Wolves ones, I won one a couple of weeks ago. To be fair, it was a midweek games. I think it was Wolves, Liverpool, and Arsenal played Everton. I think, and I won that one. So yeah,
I need to check
I'm a
my
little
pot. I don't actually know if I win anything. I could have won. Imagine. I think I'm seeing that soar up anyway. But yeah, 50 quid guaranteed pot. As we know, Dave, for us this week, and Betmate have done us an absolute solid free entry with a simple pot code WOL-LEE. The affiliate link will be in the description below. Dave, we're going to get your Sky Sports little pose here, by the way. I mean, look at
there
that.
he is.
What have I done? It's missing me on the far side, isn't
Yeah.
it? Really, can duplicate that or something like that. But yeah, Dave, talk us through this, mate. What have you gone with? Well,
Yeah.
it's littered, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the key for you got to put your neck out on the line if you want to win these pots, and you've got to go heavy one team. I'm sure Leeds fans, some Leeds fans will go heavy Leeds. I did this last week against Newcastle. I went all Wolves and that backfired massively. But I've gone with Sarr in goal. Being at home, back him to make a clean sheet. But Dawson and Semedo at the back for Wolves. Neves and Nunes. Neves always gets points. He's a very, very good player to have. So I've put him as my captain. Cunha up top if he's fit. Obviously, I'll change him if not. And I never know how to pronounce this guy's now. I'm going to go I don't know. Yeah, but I really like him.
Yeah, I thought you nearly got it then, but then you stopped, didn't you? It's Nonto, Willie Nonto.
Nonto. Yeah, but I really like him. Really bright talent. So yeah, I back him to cause us some problems if he starts on Saturday.
And yeah, you can take the no picture there, a bit boring. Need to sort that out, mate. Yeah, I've gone Sarr in net as well. To be honest, Dave, Melee has been making a few mistakes, and I'm going for the win this week as well. Firpo's been very good for Leeds recently, which is an added bonus. We're gonna have to contend with him up against potentially Adama Traore. Who knows?
Yeah, possible.
Always rated Max Kilman. I've no idea if he's going to start in a back two, presumably Dave, him and Dawson, presumably.
Should do, yeah.
I've gone with Neves, the same as you, captain. I've seen on Betmate he does very well most weeks, to be honest with you. Podence I've stuck in there as well. Like Daniel Podence always seems to score against us or do something. And then up front I've gone with Harrison and Nonto, mate. So yeah, an even split there. Some would say very fair. But yeah, there we go. And we'll have to wait and see how that one goes. But Dave, I'm going to push for a score prediction, my friend. What are your thoughts?
I think, like I said earlier, I think it'll be a very, very close game. I'm going to go with a very safe. Both teams to score, but Wolves to edge it 2-1 bet. 2-1. So yeah, like I said, I think it'll be a goal either way. Really, really tough game. But for both teams, absolutely massive match. I don't know about you. Would you take a point? Would you be happy with a point at full time? I don't know. So I suppose it just depends on other results as well.
I would, mate. I mean, we are not in a favourable position whatsoever. But I think if you can build up your point tally away from home, and you can win your home games. Yeah. And after this, we've got Forest and Palace at home, so they are just must wins. And listen, if we don't beat Forest and Palace, we deserve to go down. And I'll be the first ones to throw my hands up.
Yeah.
If you could pick two teams to face now, it'd probably be those two at home. So. Yeah, and we were a bit of reuniting with Morgan Gibbs White. I saw when you played him earlier on in the season. I can't remember if you did him on penalties.
No, they beat us on penalties, yeah.
And he gave it, didn't he? That was a bit. I thought that was a bit uncalled for after he scored the penalty.
It was a sour ending. I don't really know why. And then obviously we beat them at home. That was Steve Davis's only win, and it was a bit of a feisty affair then. And he got booed all over the shop. And then when we played them at their place in the cup, obviously they took an early lead and he took the corner, which led to the goal, and he turned and gave it the big into the Wolves fans.
It's a big away allocation there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, right behind the goal. And then we absolutely smashed him. Like genuinely, though, it was one of the worst performances I've seen from a team this season.
They look poor. They look really poor against us.
We got robbed by the ref at the end. We should have had a penalty, and then it went to penalties, and his penalty was atrocious. He did one of those stutters where you stop right before you kick it. And he got no power on it. And I don't know how it beat Jose Sarr. And he turned and gave it the big one. And then Cunha scored the next penalty and did the same celebration. But obviously, in the end, it cost us. But yeah, it's I can't go to away game. I'm gutted, really. But it'll be interesting what the atmosphere is like. But part of me wants them to go down just because of that. Like, it would be, I'd love to post that picture out on social media if they go down.
Yeah, that'd fly. It 100% would, mate. But Dave, we're going to do something on your channel as well, aren't we? So, guys, make sure you head over to Talking Wolves if you want your pre, your post, Wolves Leeds chat. Dave, thanks for joining me, mate.
My pleasure, mate. Thank you. Yeah, and obviously, if you boys do beat us, you can watch me crying in my car again like that.
Yeah, you need to provide us with that content. I'm crying on here most weeks anyway, mate. So, guys, take care. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in a bit. Cheers.